Welcome back, OIG family, to another exciting episode in our AMA series where we sit down with incredible projects and ask all the questions. Today, we have the privilege of having Matjaz, the CEO of Authtrail. Authtrail is a bridge between the value of enterprise data and the power of blockchain technology. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon to get all the latest updates with everything that has to do with blockchain technology and OIG. Okay, Matjaz, well, welcome to our show. We'd like to talk a little more about Authtrail. So could you give us a little more intro into what it is and summarize it a bit?
So basically, Authtrail is a data integrity platform based on Moonbeam or Polkadot. I've seen several different applications or adoptions of blockchain technology in the past, but none of them were really something that I could say, okay, this could change the way businesses operate. So what we are building here really is to create the bridge between enterprise data and blockchain technology, and by connecting to existing legacy systems and companies' environments.
Interesting. So you mentioned you're going to be bridging the gap between enterprise data technology as well as blockchain technology. How will you
Yeah.
be doing that? How are you prepared to accomplish that with the team you have?
So to answer maybe your first question, so how we're doing it is basically we're creating different connectors to the legacy systems for SAP, Oracle, Office 365, and so on. So basically all the systems that are currently running in enterprise environments, and we want to give customers the possibility to onboard or to, let's say, connect those systems to the blockchain. And yeah, luckily we have a great team to help us with that. Um, may I start by myself or how I got into the game and what I did to really be where I am today. I first started basically to invest and look into crypto 7 years ago with Ethereum ICO. Then back then introduced by a neighbor of mine, and he already then mentioned, I mean, Ethereum is good and great, but wait till you see what Polkadot is building. And this is basically when I first started thinking a little bit out of the box. What could be the enterprise way? What could be adoption of blockchain in the enterprise world? And what kind of solution or what kind of technology could be leveraged to accomplish that? And being in the data management field for the past 20 years, I've seen it firsthand how data has been manipulated, mishandled, corrupted, and so on. So basically, this was for me the no-brainer to say, okay, data and blockchain are something that goes together very well. And this is then how Authtrail basically got developed. We have to bring the story then somehow to the audience, to the public. So we have a very great marketing team who's been led by Domen. Domen has been running successful campaigns in, I mean, several large organizations like Uber, Hisense, etc., among others. So and he also has a very strong business and network when it comes to not just marketing but really day-to-day business operations. And his team is growing basically one of faster than any other team right now because we want to bring the story out to the wider audience. So his team consists of two very charming ladies, Lenka and Veronica, who are basically creating all the content that we see today out there, from the blog posts to um, I mean basically everything we read about Austria. Then we also have Patrick and David. Sorry, Patrick is responsible for the social media content, for the video graphics. Also, like I mean, we did our all AMA a couple of weeks ago, so he's responsible for this kind of stuff. And David is actually a former Olympian.
Wow.
He used to play ice hockey. Was also on the Sochi Olympics with the Slovenian national team. But then he also tapped into the crypto waters as an investor, and he's now running our community and is helping Patrick together with the social media stuff.
Really cool. So you got people from everywhere. You even got an Olympian on your team. I mean,
Yeah,
you're sure to be champions at some point, right?
for sure, for sure.
So, so with the name Authtrail, where did that originate from? How did it come to be called Authtrail?
It's basically a combination of authentic trail.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the additional, let's say, the ground stone that was set for Authweb was basically guaranteeing data integrity and to like basically trace the data back to its original source. And so data integrity as a service became a core part of the whole Authtrail platform. However, we now, as we're building the Authtrail platform, data integrity is just a means to an end to a much larger picture. And we'll see a lot of news coming out in the upcoming weeks on where Authtrail is basically going towards too.
Why is this necessary? What does it fulfill? You touched on, data integrity, but could you go a little more in depth on why this is so critical in blockchain technology?
I think it's for both worlds. One of the really the enterprise, I mean the old economy, to have a gateway to enter blockchain in a very easy way without having to have a lot of know-how, without to have to spend extraordinary amounts of money to get the knowledge and the technology to understand they can connect their enterprise data sources to the blockchain. So this is on the enterprise world to really give them a possibility to have an easy on-ramp onto blockchain. And on the other hand, for the blockchain business itself, it gives blockchain, let's say, a little bit more strength, a little bit more credibility in the world of the day-to-day operation, to showcase it's not just NFTs and gaming and money exchange. It's actually to bring some valuable information onto the blockchain and hold it there for day-to-day business operations. I mean, we have customers who we are discussing with them and are in the aim stages, basically, who would be writing tens of millions of transactions on a monthly basis to the blockchain. Now imagine if they would have to write 10 million transactions on Ethereum with, I don't know what the gas prices are, but that's a 8-9 figure $1 million amount.
Yeah.
That they would spend only for the gas fees, right? So we are here in between, and luckily being on Polkadot and Moonbeam, this gives us the competitive advantage on the spending.
So would it be mostly enterprises that will be utilizing this technology, or are there other clients that would be interested in using such technology?
Well, it depends. What we are building here is as well a so-called launch hub or a business accelerator on top of Authtrail.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't have the capacities to think in all directions, all verticals, what you can imagine. And once we launch the launch hub, we're going to open the APIs to a whole world of new developers who will say, look, I could use this technology for my user-facing application or for a business application, for a small business or whatsoever. And they will then just dock onto our API. So basically, the options are endless, what can be built on top of Authtrail at the end of the day. Yeah.
Really cool stuff. So you mentioned launching the hub and introduction of the APIs. So what other segments of the Authtrail ecosystem are there, and how will they work in to provide a cohesive experience for clients?
Mm-hmm. So one hand, we have the Public Explorer. So the Public Explorer is a way to share trusted data with external parties. I can give you an example. What I always like to explain is, I mean, blockchain and supply chain management has been, let's say, a pair in the making for the past years. I mean, everybody who says supply chain immediately thinks of blockchain. I agree, but there are more and more applications where blockchain could make sense, because this supply chain idea of, let's say, a so-called life cycle is applicable basically to a lot of verticals. What we are, for example, building here is as well for the healthcare system. I mean, I wish you not, but imagine you break your leg, you get your first X-ray, you get the surgery, you get the rehab, and you want to make sure once you go through all those steps, that those steps have data integrity to it, right? And so the whole life cycle of you getting cured becomes a supply chain in a specific way. So you want to make sure once the surgeon starts operating on you that he has the right X-ray, not from your left leg, but on your right leg. Once the surgeon is done and you go to rehab, you want to make sure that while they were doing your surgery, that no loins or tendons have been somehow damaged, so that the psychiatrician who then does the rehab with you knows exactly on how to help you with your cure. So basically, this Public Explorer then basically gives you the possibility to share the sensitive data with different parties, right? So from the healthcare provider to the hospital to the rehab. So they're basically all different entities, but they want to have the possibility to access the same amount or the same data set that has data integrity to it. So this is one part would be the public explorer, and you have to also validator, which is basically our current demo. It's an open source manual data verification. You just drop a file in, you can verify the hash gets anchored to the blockchain. And if you change something in the specific file, check it again against the validator, you'll see that the hash doesn't match anymore, and which means that the document itself has been somehow manipulated. And then, yeah, as we already talked, so the launch shop would be basically the big picture on at the end, where once the platform is fully operational, you have the APIs and you have the different third-party developers dock onto our platform and create, I hope, amazing applications on top of it.
For sure, and very good example with the healthcare application, because yeah, that still does happen. Wrong X-rays are referenced, wrong files are referenced, and to have something to validate and ensure that it's the correct information, that's definitely something we need right now.
Yeah.
So on the topic of utility, can you explain the function of the auth token and anchor credits more in depth?
Yeah. The anchor credits are basically used to, as the name already suggests, is to anchor the data to the blockchain. So, which means that once a customer defines a specific set of data that he wants to anchor to the blockchain, those tokens are going to be used to basically verify the hash and then anchor the data to the blockchain. However, what we've decided is to go a little bit, let's say, a two-way approach when it comes to the token. So one is going to be purely towards the crypto community, so it's going to be the Authtrail token, whereas the end customers are never exactly going to get in touch with the token by itself, because we've seen from the past that customers, as soon as you enter the customer environment, start talking about blockchain, crypto, whatsoever, an immediate red flag comes up. So we want to keep that still as transparent as possible, but also showcase, look, we are doing crypto at the backend. However, it is used for the utility and getting your data to the blockchain. Whereas the customers, they will have credits. So like a normal subscription-based pay-as-you-grow model, they will have credits, and those credits will then be used for the anchoring onto the blockchain. So which means if a customer says, look, I want to have a minimum level of integrity, he will have to anchor his data once per day, so once every 24 hours. But this will actually then consist of a whole 24-hour data set, right? So they will not have a very granular search possibility into the data set. If they want to have more granular approach, they would say, look, I need 4 to 8 anchors per day, so every 6 hours, every 2 hours, every 3 hours, whatsoever. And this means they will use more and more credits for that. At the back end, the mechanism will then trigger those buying operations on the market, and therefore driving up the let's say, the supply for the Authtrail token, which will then get used for the anchoring, and then it will split. 50% are going to be burned, 25% are going to be locked away, and 25% go into the treasury.
So essentially, they are linked, the anchor credits and the auth token. It's just different end users, right?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. So let's talk about the development. I mean, you mentioned you guys have been in development since, I believe, 2018.
Yeah.
What things have you achieved since then, and what are you most proud of?
Well, it's definitely that we've come to a point where Authtrail is beginning to get traction in either the real world, but also in the Web3 environment. As I mentioned, I mean, back in 2018, it was just a pure data integrity service, but now the idea is growing to this so-called digital product passport, circular economy. Digital product passport that I mentioned is really a passport that can be given to any specific data set. So as mentioned before, with the healthcare record, could be the whole case. For example, insurance claims could be one DPP, supply chain, financial transactions. So basically every data set that is somehow valuable to a customer can get a so-called digital product passport, and this can then be tracked on the blockchain. So this is what we are now building towards to, is really building this DPP together with the circular economy. And we're doing it with great customers so far. I mean, we have already 5 customers who are working closely with us, co-developing the code, showcasing us where the trends are going and how we could improve our product to really be in time with the new development on the market then. But I also think that we are also driving now with this narrative that we're building here, with the connecting enterprise to blockchain, showcasing customers that there is future in blockchain, that more and more customers trust into blockchain, and they can see that they can build business cases on top of it.
I mean, the number one thing you mentioned too is trusting the blockchain. Like, there's still, an underlying fear of blockchain technology, just because it's so very young. But
Mhm.
uh, having Authtrail build the foundation to validate data on by utilizing blockchain technology for enterprises really opens the doors and opens the floodgates to a lot of new businesses to roll in. So definitely
Exactly.
something we need, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Great. So the next segment we're going to go into is our Twitter questions.
Mhm.
So our first question comes from BD_boss, who asks, security is the weakness of any project. Anytime hackers can attack and create huge losses for users and owners. So what steps did your project take to prevent this kind of attack, and how do you control risk?
Cool question. Yeah. When we started building Authtrail, this was definitely one of the major aspects on how to build the platform in a way that you don't compromise companies' data. And given the fact that we are in Europe, Europe with the GDPR requirements is very strict on how you handle the data, how you move the data. Um, we don't move or we don't touch any data per se. So we only deal with the data hashes and the anchors and not the actual data. So meaning that the data itself remains at its native location. So customers can have the data either in the cloud, either on premise or whatsoever. So Author never stores any data on private servers or whatsoever. So which means there's no GDPR risk or that any data breaches could somehow compromise, right? Even if the hacker should get into Author's databases, they would only see the hashes, and those hashes mean nothing to them without the customer data that the customer then controls it.
So another level of security is simply because you're not coming into contact with the data directly. It's
Yeah,
it's it's just the
it's all
hashes.
done. It's all done on prem on the customer side. We only receive the hashes, and those hashes then get monitored and anchored to the blockchain.
Amazing, amazing answer. So our next question comes from Crypto Geek, who asks, "Why did Authtrail decide to build on Moonbeam? What competitive advantages does building on Moonbeam give to Authtrail platform and its users? What other networks does the team consider before choosing Moonbeam? And will you integrate into more networks in the future?"
Mhm. So originally the idea was, or original offer was built on Ethereum, and back in 2018 this was still feasible. I mean the gas prices were kind of low, but I mean it was the go-to network when it came to enterprise data. But with the growing demand and more adoption of Ethereum, we see that there's, I mean, the example I like to say is, I mean, when I talk to an enterprise customer and say to them, look, do you really want to move, or the other way around? I mean, when a customer says, why are you going to Moonbeam? I say, look, imagine there's an airdrop coming on so-called crypto titties on Ethereum, which is clogging the network. Are you really willing to wait 2 days for a business critical transaction to go through, or pay 10x amount of fees? Or would you rather be on a secure, highly governed, highly secure network that is meant for enterprise business like Polkadot, and have the safe, let's say, the peace of mind to understand that your data is stored in a secured way? So um, basically, when we started then migrating our code from Ethereum to Moonbeam, I mean the transition was seamless. I think it just took us 1 hour, 1.5 hours to migrate the whole code, to test it, and we were up and running on Polkadot basically. And I mean, we could have chosen Kusama as well and go Moon River, but then again, enterprise mission critical data, we cannot afford to have some outages, to have some very fluctuating gas prices whatsoever. We need a stable and highly governed, highly secured network to process company data.
It's really great to see a company valuing security as well as transparency with all of what you've said. So it's good to see that you understand what the what enterprises need as well. Like you
Yeah,
said, you could have easily went on to Kusama, but because you value the enterprise aspect, you've gone to Polkadot, and that's going to
exactly.
benefit you in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, I want to emphasize here as well. I mean, we are starting on Moonbeam and
Yeah.
Polkadot. I mean, we want to stay still somehow blockchain agnostic. If there are companies who have different needs or approaches or have somehow partnerships whatsoever and want to go onto, I don't know, Solana, Avalanche, Ethereum, whatsoever, um, we are open on connecting different blockchains in the backend as well. So, but given the fact that we started Ethereum, the seamless migration was to Moonbeam, and at the moment for us, this is the most secured network there is. We're staying on Moonbeam and Polkadot for now. Yeah.
Yeah, can't argue with that. So, question number 3 from Twitter comes from Join Hiddleston, who asks, I've seen almost no information about Authtrail's IDO. Could you tell us more about this? Where will it take place and how can we participate, as well as requirements and benefits?
It's one of my personal something that's on my personal agenda. I want this project to be one of the more reputable projects as well. So that's why we are aiming towards the tier one exchanges, where we want to launch our token and have the IDO. So we are currently in different conversations with those tier one exchanges. Um, I can't give you right now, unfortunately, any details because it's all under NDA, but we're aiming to have the launch by end of Q2, latest beginning of Q3. This is going to be the TG event and also then our IEO. However, what we have right now running, and the announcement should be out in a couple of hours, is the community only invitation round, which gives early supporters of our Telegram and Twitter the possibility to get an early investment opportunity before we go live.
Awesome. And you mentioned that it's sometime in Q2. Where would the community find out? Where would they see this information first?
Definitely on social media channels, so Twitter and Telegram. This is where we are most active. But as mentioned before, I mean, we have a very great marketing team. I mean, we've actually partnered with Market Across, one of the leading, let's say, PR agency, marketing agents in the crypto environment. And they're really helping us a lot. So look out for announcements on various different channels, websites in the upcoming weeks.
For sure. And for all our viewers, all the links will be in the description, so you can definitely check them out whenever you get the chance. That ends off our Twitter question segment. Let's just wrap up the AMA with a little bit more about your roadmap. What's coming up? What should we be aware of? We talked about the IDO. What else is coming up?
So definitely, as we've already mentioned, the community round is what's running currently. But the biggest thing that I think is going to be launching in the upcoming weeks is really this launch up, the business accelerator, to get this ecosystem growing, to bring younger partners, younger developers into our ecosystems. So it's basically like a grant program that we are going to be running, funding different projects on top of Authtrail. Because as mentioned, I mean, we don't have the manpower to really go into all the verticals. We are not specialized in all the verticals. However, we are giving the tools and the knowledge on blockchain integrations, and they're going to help younger partners to then basically onboard onto the Web3 environment.
Well, Matjaz, it was amazing talking to you today about Authtrail. You've done a superb job highlighting the importance of data integrity and security across a multitude of industries, as well as real-world applications that can be implemented today. We can't wait to see what more Authtrail has in store for the future.
Thanks for hosting me. It was a pleasure being here.